You are listening to the Nightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. We thank you for listening. Coming up, we'll recap last weekend's games and get you set for this weekend. And our Spotlight Game of the Week will be featured Tulsa taking on Cincinnati. Kelly Hines of the Tulsa World will join us to talk about that. Also, some college basketball news to talk about, as Wichita State coach Greg Marshall has been accused of striking players and being also verbally abusive. We will talk about that with Taylor Eldridge of the Wichita Eagle. That's still to come on today's show. Houston overcame some rustiness in the first game of the season after giving up 2 defensive scores and were down by 17 to Tulane. The Cougs rallied to win 49-31. Wide receiver Marquez Stevenson led the way with a 41-yard touchdown reception and a 97-yard kickoff return for a score. He had 223 all-purpose yards. Defensive end Peyton Turner had 7 tackles, 2 sacks, 4.5 tackles for loss. That led their defense to hold Tulane to 70 rushing yards, snapping a 56-game streak in which the Green Wave had rushed for at least 100. Cougars coach Dana Holgerson had highest praise for his defense.
Pretty good. We started with 3 and out, and then offense just made a couple of just horrendous plays, obviously, and gave them 14 points. And then defense was looking at the offense and going like, what's going on here? And they kind of forgot to play there for a while in the first quarter. Other than that, they played really well. First time that Tulane hasn't rushed for 100 yards in 58 games or something like that. These guys are physical and, they're multiple with what they do. Willie does a great job, scheming with especially with the run game. Felt like we could get after their quarterback. Our D-line has improved a lot. Just playing a freshman quarterback, we felt like we could get after him a little bit right there. So, a lot of the rushing yards, I don't know what they gained rushing wise, but those sacks had something to do with it, right? They go backwards 6 or 7 times. So, played well. Other than just one period in the one period, a couple of possessions, one period in this first quarter, I thought they played a complete game.
Navy jumped atop the American Athletic Conference standings at 2-0 in conference as the Midshipmen battled for a 31-29 win against Temple at Navy Marine Corps Stadium. The Midshipmen, who have won their 2 conference games by a combined 5 points, turned away Temple's bid for the tying 2-point conversion with 1:02 left to play. And it secures the 100th career head coaching victory for Coach Ken Niumatalolo. Fullback Nelson Smith led the offense with 120 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns for Navy, while quarterback Dalen Morris back in the lineup engineered offense. They had 253 rushing yards and 301 total. Temple, which was playing its season opener, saw quarterback Anthony Russo account for 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing and 1 passing, while running back Ramon Davis had 97 yards and a touchdown. Navy coach Ken Niumatalolo reflecting on the victory.
Just speechless for our program, our players coming back after a devastating loss. Our guys battled. We had our 2 starting inside linebackers out, our starting safety out, our other safety was out the first half. The guys battled. Our guys on defense just found a way to make enough plays to win. Proud of Dalen coming back, being able to play. Sparked us, obviously, played really, really well. Thought the fullbacks ran hard. A-backs played well. We had some really big plays by CJ and Coop. Line block grade. It's just a great team win. Obviously, Bijan's kick at the end gave us the 8-point cushion. That was, to win by 1 was awesome. So, or whatever you want by. Just proud of our team.
East Carolina picked up its first win of the season as the Pirates pulled away for a 44-24 victory against USF in Tampa. Quarterback Holt Nailers threw 3 touchdown passes, while running back Rajay Harris went for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns on 19 carries. Pirates head coach Mike Houston.
Obviously, I'm just incredibly proud of our kids. I just not enough words to say. Just had our best week of practice. Defense had its best Tuesday practice. Offense had its best practice on Wednesday. The last 48 hours, walkthroughs were great Friday. They were great today. Kids were locked in during meetings. I mean, just the attention to detail, the urgency, and also we were relaxed. And so I felt really good. And I told John Gilbert, he called me this morning. I went and took a little walk after walkthrough, and we were talking. And I said, you know what? We've had our best week of practice. The kids are relaxed. They're confident. I expect us to play well. And I don't know that I expect us to come down here and get a 20-point victory on the road against a team that, quite frankly, East Carolina struggled against over the years. But I'm very proud of all three phases: offense, defense, special teams. Obviously we got some things we got to correct, some things we got to improve on, but we did so many things well this week that we've been struggling with. And so that was just really, really good to see.
Now let's get you set for this week's action. The first set of games kicks off on Friday. SMU is at Tulane. That'll be at 6 o'clock on ESPN. The all-time series tied at 13 games apiece. SMU won last year's meeting by a 37-20 score. Following that, on the four-letter network, BYU will take on Houston at 9:30 scheduled kickoff. BYU leads the all-time series 2-0. The last meeting back in 2014 was a 33-25 victory for BYU. For the Saturday tilts, Navy at East Carolina. That will kick off at noon on ESPN+. The Midshipmen lead the all-time series 6-1, and were victorious last year by a 42-10 score. South Florida is at Temple. That also at noon, and also on ESPN+. Temple leads the all-time series 4-2, and they won last year's game by a 17-7 score. UCF at Memphis, 3:30. That'll be on ABC. The Knights lead the all-time series 13-1. They have won 13 straight. And the last meeting was in the AAC Conference Championship game on December 1st, 2018, which the Knights won by a 56-41 score. Coming up next, we'll look at our Spotlight Game of the Week. Tulsa plays host to number 8 Cincinnati. Kelly Hines of the Tulsa World joins us to talk about that after this quick timeout on the AAC Report.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
And our Spotlight Game of the Week has number 8 Cincinnati visiting the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. Joining us now to talk about that, Kelly Hines from the Tulsa World. Kelly, thanks once again for being on the show.
Oh, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Well, I tell you what, the Tulsa Golden Hurricane off to a excellent start in 2020. A tough back-and-forth defensive battle against number 11 Oklahoma State to start the season. A game they had a second-half lead in, and then they rallied from behind to beat UCF, ending their long home winning streak. What is working well for Tulsa so far?
You know, I really think that this is Philip Montgomery's most complete team. You know, in 6 seasons, I know that there have been some seasons that haven't been so great, but, you know, he won 10 games in his second year. But I really feel like this team is more complete in the sense that, you know, it doesn't have as much of the offensive firepower maybe as the 2016 team, but this defense is pretty good. It is a small sample size, only 2 games, so it's hard not to get too caught up, and especially the UCF win. But I do feel like there's a chance for this to be a good season. And going into the year, I don't know that I would have, everything with 2020 is unpredictable, so it's hard to say. But, I didn't know that the defense would be this good early on.
Yeah, and then you look at that, you probably wouldn't have thought of circling October 17th on the calendar. This could be a pivotal game in the conference for as far as first place goes.
Yeah, no, I mean, and what's as crazy as anything is you mentioned, with Tulsa's schedule playing, the 11th ranked team in back-to-back games, and now Cincinnati being number 8 coming here to play Tulsa. We're midway through October, and Tulsa's playing its first home game. I mean, so many weird things are happening, but for Tulsa to even be in a conversation about playing in a game that has a lot of meaning, I mean, that's something that is obviously hasn't been the case in the last few years. So I think it kind of shows where this program has come just in the last few years, and maybe isn't quite there yet. Who knows? We'll see what happens, especially against Cincinnati and in the remaining games. But to even be mentioned as a team that is a contender, I didn't know that they would be to this point yet. I thought it might be another year before they could get, and even, I mean, there are a lot of programs that it just doesn't happen at any point. It's hard to get to that level in the American with all of the talent that's there and then the good coaches. So for Tulsa to be where they are right now, it is, just now the third game of the year, but I think they're in a pretty good position right now.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Bearcats coming in. They have not been spectacular on offense, and of course, they hang their hat on their defense, much like Tulsa does with Coach Luke Fickell. So we could probably expect that this is going to be a game like fighting in a small closet.
Yeah, and looking back to that game last year, because it is kind of unusual. They played each other last year. It wasn't like a really entertaining game, but Zach Smith for Tulsa made a lot of errors in that game, and you have to think, if things had gone different on offense, could they have won that game? Now, looking at what the offense is trying to do in this game, I think just not making a lot of mistakes, that is that going to be enough? I think if you hang your hat on your defense, which I think Tulsa is doing now, you're expected to be in a lot of these games.
Yeah, and you look at the fact that, Cincinnati will play that way, and there certainly will not be a whole lot of different contrast going on there, as Cincinnati also likes to try to establish the run game and do those sorts of types of things. So let's talk a little bit about Tulsa's defense, because they definitely have played spectacularly so far this year. And certainly linebacker Zaven Collins is looking like a Sunday payday guy in the NFL when he's done.
Oh, my gosh. He is someone who, before he even played in a game for Tulsa, someone within the program said, he's going to play in the NFL. And I was like, really? I mean, you have to think that there's, that possibility for someone who has a lot of talent. But, they were just so convinced that he could be a star. And, you have to have a lot of things go right. You have to have a kid with, that drive to get better year after year. And he's done that. I mean, he's only a junior, but he's a fourth-year junior, and he's super intelligent. I think he the biggest difference for this year versus last year is he understands defenses. He knows what he's supposed to do, and he did before, but, just more time in the system. I think it's made a big difference for him. And, the rest of the defense, I mean, the thing that really strikes me about them is they're all doing their jobs. Every guy on the field, when they're getting stops, like, it's not just one guy. Zaven is obviously a huge part of that. But they are working so well together, more than maybe any defense I've ever covered. You just see it kind of fall into place, and it's pretty incredible to watch. But, every position group has been pretty solid. Linebackers obviously are pretty good with Zaven. But the secondary, TU's defense has so much length. They have 8 guys, I think, that are 6'2" or taller, 6'3", I can't remember the stat. But, they've got a lot of length and speed, especially in the secondary. When your corners are 6'3", 6'4", I mean, that's a pretty good recipe right there. So I think it just kind of things are coming together. This is the third year in the system, and you're starting to see guys who are recruited for this defensive scheme, and I think that's paid off a lot.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a great point about the secondary, because they've pretty much have locked down the other team's receivers, which only in turn helps your pass rush. And in fact, Tulsa was getting at UCF's Dylan Gabriel with a 3-man pass rush.
Oh yeah, and that's incredible. I mean, you're seeing guys up front who are holding their own against double teams. They've got the right pieces for this defense, and a lot of that is there's some trust there that I don't know has been that it's been there in the past, not just with the coaches trusting the players, but the players trusting each other, and you see good things happen. I mean, Tulsa's tied for the most going into last weekend. I'm not sure what the stat is now, but they're averaging 12 TFLs through their first 2 games, and that's pretty incredible. I mean, it's a team that had only not too much more than what they're at now last season, for all of last season. So, I think that you're seeing those negative yardage plays. That's just a result of being really aggressive and doing your job. And it's just been fun to watch from my perspective, because Tulsa's defense has not been that way. As you know, for the last few years, it hasn't been that way. Mm-hmm. For them to get, 6 sacks in a game against Oklahoma State, I mean, that was pretty incredible.
Yeah, and some things are unexplainable in sports, and for whatever reason, Tulsa seems to have UCF's number. A lot of even going back to Conference USA days. Some of these things are just so hard to explain. But 2 straight seasons, they take down UCF as they are, a top shelf team in the league. And do you have an explanation? Because I can't come up with one.
I think since Philip Montgomery took over, it's been more of a result of, UCF's offense is probably most similar to what Tulsa wants its offense to be like. That's the sort of offense that they are styled after. They're, more familiar with what UCF is trying to do on offense, and that makes it easier to stop them, obviously. So I think that their defense matches up really well with UCF on offense. So I think that's been a part of it, and I think some of it is just, they're going to be really interested in playing that game. I'm not saying they're not interested in playing anyone else, but UCF is a program that's mentioned as one of the best in the league, because they've earned that, they deserve that. And I think for Tulsa being one of those programs that is not to that level right now, consistently, been mentioned among the worst in the league the last few years, because that's where they finished. I think that's the sort of upset that they could really get, fired up to play in that game and to win games like that. I think it's been just a significant game for them on their schedule.
Yeah, and talk about Philip Montgomery a little bit, because, you look at, he did have some struggling seasons, and, you could see them starting to turn the corner last season with all the close games they played and the UCF upset. And then, and you look at the fact that, it would have been very easy to have moved on from him, because, they weren't going in the right direction for a little while there. But he had some success when he started there, and a lot of times guys don't get the opportunity to turn it around, and it looks like he is finally getting to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you take away those first, and then, because obviously most of those were not guys he brought in. So, I think he did really well, especially with Dane Evans at quarterback. I think most coaches would have done well with Dane Evans at quarterback. But then, these, the previous 3 years before this year, those were definite steps, backward. But if you considered, Philip's third year almost like his first year, then you kind of can see the progression to where they are now. I don't know if that makes sense, but they've taken steps each of the past 3 years. It's just, to go from 2 wins to 3 wins to 4 wins, that's not as dramatic as, a lot of people would like. We like to see turnarounds from a losing season to a 10-win season. it's more common for success to be defined by wins and not by progress. So, and I think that's fair. And I think Philip would admit that. So, when you lose a lot of close games like they did last year, it was hard to really be, encouraged by that because there's still losses. So I think that, this year the hope was just to get to a bowl game. If they could finish 500, that would still be a step in the right direction. But I think they've made more of that jump because I think they're the type of team that can win those close games. They have, as I said, a more complete team. So I think that Philip has done a good job of not getting, too bogged down with the outcomes because obviously that's what we all look at. Your success is defined by your record. And I think he's said so many times, we're so close. We're better than our record. And a lot of that is coach speak, but, when you're able to have a good season that follows that, then you look back and it's like, maybe they were close and I'm not enough of an X's and O's type to really see how close they were, So it's I think a lot is going to depend on how the rest of the season goes, but I do think it's possible for them to have a really good year.
What is his style with the players? Is he a player's coach? Is he a disciplinarian? A little bit of both? What is his style?
I would say he's more of a player's coach, and you kind of see that in how they celebrate victories. If you've seen any of their locker room celebrations, they do this chant where he says, "I got you," and they say, "You got me," or something. Maybe I have that backward. Anyway, their whole thing is they have each other's back, and I think that goes a long way with players because, a school like Tulsa, it's the smallest FBS school. You're really going to have to take that blue-collar approach, They recruit guys who are, no stars, 2 stars, 3 stars maybe, And I think that when you're trying to build a program like that, you have to have those guys buy in. And it's not always going to be easy. There are going to be, in the early going, there may be some painful losses. But I think that he's earned the respect of his guys. And, I think that's a big part of it. It's obviously not easy when the wins aren't there. But, it's been pretty rare for guys to transfer out of this program, despite, all of the losses of the previous 3 years. They've kept, just about all of their guys. And I think that's pretty impressive. And I think that's pretty telling.
Mm. So as far as this weekend goes, what do you think are the keys to the game and how do you think it'll play out?
I think a lot of it is going to hinge on Tulsa's offense, just trying to build on, what they've done, what they did against Central Florida, especially, after the horrible first quarter and the way they kind of rebounded from that. But like I said, I think the defense can hold its own. I think the defense is skilled enough to do well against just about anybody. If you can do well against Oklahoma State and Central Florida with all of the talent that those offenses have, I think you're going to be fine against just about anybody left on your schedule. So I think it's really going to be a key for Tulsa to get its run game going early, and that will open up things, all over the field. So not to put all of the pressure on the offense, but I really feel like the defense is going to be okay.
And will there be fans in attendance?
Well, they're going to have 4,000 fans, which the joke around here is that's about as many as they've had in recent years because attendance has been such a problem here lately. The stadium seats 30,000. It's been, more frequent, I would say 10, 12,000 fans in recent years, but it's homecoming. So a homecoming game would probably have closer to 15, 20,000 in a normal year. And especially with how TU is playing, they probably would have had more than 20,000, but they're limiting it to 4,000. They've already sold out of those tickets, which, doesn't take much to get 4,000 people at a college football game in Oklahoma, but no tailgating and, it won't have that same feel, obviously, as a normal homecoming game. But there'll be some fans there, and there'll be football played, and that's all we can really ask for at this point.
Yeah, will you be on site or covering remotely?
I will be there. I'm looking forward to covering another game in person after kind covering the Central Florida game from my couch. It's just not really the same. So I'm glad to be able to go to a game. I was at the Oklahoma State game, and I'll be at, obviously all of the home games, maybe some of the road games, but the whole pandemic thing, kind of makes things difficult. So, and with Tulsa's games mostly being far from home, that's obviously an issue. So I'm super excited to go to this game. I know a lot of people don't like the early kickoff. I love the early kickoff. So, for it to be 11 a.m. local time, I am all for that.
I'm with you. I love early kickoffs as well. Well, Kelly, as always, we do appreciate it. And again, remind folks where they can follow you on social media.
Kelly Hines TW is where you can find me.
Excellent. Again, appreciate your time and enjoy the game this coming Saturday.
Okay, thank you so much.
And Kelly will have a full wrap-up of the game as well on TulsaWorld.com. Cincinnati at Tulsa is a noon kickoff on ESPN2. Tulsa leads the all-time series 17-15. Cincinnati won last year's meeting on their home turf by a 24-13 score. News from college basketball. Wichita State head coach Greg Marshall under investigation for mental and physical abuse towards his players. Eldridge of the Wichita Eagle joins us to talk about that story next. Plus, we'll check this week's rankings and the players of the week when the AAC Report continues in just a moment.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Fagley reminding you to tune in every Tuesday night, 9 to 10 p.m. on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, plus the WDBO app for Nightline at Night. Brought to you by Chad Bar Law. We'll be taking your calls and your texts reacting to the previous week's UCF sports action, and you never know who will show up. Once again, that's Nightline at Night, every Tuesday, 9 to 10 p.m. on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, plus the WDBO app. Go Knights and charge on.
Welcome. This is a promo for the Take a Left at Albuquerque podcast, new to the Nightline Sports Network. You should listen to it. I say things like this.
We need to stop blaming Jerry because we would do the exact same thing if we owned the Dallas freaking Cowboys. Do you know how much fun it is to own the Dallas Cowboys?
My guests will say things sometimes like this.
It's the Lord of the Flies thing that happens when they don't understand that things are wrong, spoiler alert, until Piggy dies.
Lord of the Flies has been out for like 100 years. I don't even know.
Sorry to everyone at home who I spoiled the book for. A book's been out for like 90 years or something.
And sometimes, rarely though, I'll say really stupid things like this. If they don't make it out of the West and the Raptors get to the finals, I will go on either this show or whoever's show and say that Kawhi Leonard is overrated because I have too much evidence of it. New episodes drop every Friday with me and some of my good friends right here on the Nightline Sports Network.
Well, there is news from college basketball as Wichita State head coach Greg Marshall under investigation for mental and physical abuse towards his players and staff. Eldridge of the Wichita Eagle is back on the show, and he's going to join us to talk about that story. Taylor, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. And so I guess at the heart of the matter is that the incident with Shaquille Morris, which he claims that Marshall struck him twice during an October 2015 practice and saw him choke a former assistant coach Kyle Lindstedt during a practice in the 2016-2017 season, is kind of the centerpiece of all this news that was broken by Stadium. So at this point, can you tell us where the investigation is at? When do we think the investigation will conclude? And where are we at this point in the investigation?
Yeah, I mean, we're still trying to figure out when exactly Wichita State hired the St. Louis law firm. I would have assumed because it was triggered by the Stadium investigation, which began back in April. I would have assumed it would have been, pretty soon after that. But, it's still underway, and they're still, talking to former players and trying to reach out to other former players. As I think Jeff Goodman, the reporter for Stadium, has said, a lot of the players did not trust the investigation, so they originally did not speak to the investigators. So I don't know how much they did have, before the story broke, and then I think that the tide has kind of shifted, and from what I've been told, more former players are starting to come forward and talk to the investigators. So I think it's just still an ongoing process, and WSU has come out and said that Marshall's going to be able to still operate as the head coach on a day-to-day basis. He's not suspended or anything. So they had their first practice of the season today on Wednesday, and he's still operating as everything is normal. So they're just waiting for that investigation to wrap up, and the acting president, who actually was just named the interim president today for WSU, he has said that there really isn't a timeline. He doesn't want to put a date on anything, so it's just going to be one of those things where it's just going to be it's going to be a matter of how many players they can talk to, and then they're going to wrap it up from there and make that final call. But as far as I know, that's still ongoing, and everyone I've said just they don't have any idea like when a timeline might be.
And of course, you at the guys at the Wichita Eagle have contacted 5 former players who are remaining anonymous. But what are they telling you?
Yeah, they basically just confirmed independently the 2 major physical abuse allegations that Marshall did. Strike Shaq Morris in the back of the head during a practice in 2015, and then he also put his hand around the throat of Kyle Lindstead during a practice during the 2016-17 season. So, they're not wanting to talk. They're not wanting to put their name out there right now. So, but yeah, we've asked them all separately, can you confirm the details? And what they're telling us is that, yes, they are true. So I'm just reporting basically what Jeff Goodman did. And, that's what they're telling me. They're saying basically the same stuff. Haven't had anyone, they've either declined or not responded. I haven't had anyone tell me that it didn't happen. So, from the former players.
And Greg Marshall is saying that he is fully cooperating with this independent investigation, and he has also now come out and really to basically vehemently deny this story. Have you had a chance to converse with Coach Marshall?
I've not talked to him. He has been communicating through statements through his agent, and he actually just released one yesterday, probably his strongest worded one, where he came out and, emphatically denied that I've never struck a player, a coach, anything like that. So he just came out and straight up denied that he's ever, the verbiage he used was struck. He said, I've never struck a player or a coach. So he's basically come out and denied these allegations. So, I haven't been able to talk to, Coach Marshall one-on-one or anything like that. And I think he's just going to go through his age, until this investigation, wraps up or completes. So, that's basically where he stands on it.
Of course, Marshall, has made Wichita State a pretty much an elite program in his tenure there, and he is known as very fiery. He definitely has a style that probably isn't for everybody. There's been numerous players in the transfer portal of late. Is this kind of one of those cases where there's smoke, there may be a flame, maybe a fire?
Yeah, it's so tough to tell because, the only players that know are the ones that, witnessed the physical abuse. And I think what you've seen is, players from all different years during Greg Marshall's tenure have come out and, supported their coach and said that, they still swear by Greg Marshall and his coaching style. And, they say that his, the way that he coached them and pushed them, that's the reason why they're successful still today. So there's no shortage of, former players who have come out and still supported Greg Marshall. But, the thing is, if you look at it, on social media. None of the players on the 2015-16 team or that were on the 2016-17 team, the 2 seasons in question when the physical abuse stuff happened, nobody on those teams have come out publicly and defended Coach Marshall. So I think that's, and who knows, maybe they do support him, but at least they have not made that public. And like I said, I've talked to 5 different players from both of those teams, and what they've told me is that it did happen.
So if this investigation does conclude that that physical abuse took place, is he done?
I think if the investigation confirms that and, they get enough players on the record, I think that, it puts Wichita State in a very tough position where, obviously they, by not suspending him, that kind of tells me that, they're going to let this, process play out, and they're going to give, Coach Marshall every opportunity to, to keep this job, and maybe rightfully so. I mean, these are, as of now, they're just allegations. So it just depends on what that investigation turns up, and if they feel like they, have a pretty rock-solid case, it would not surprise me in the slightest, if that's the end result. It's just going to depend on, what the players say to the investigators and what the coaches say. And then, it's just going to be up to Wichita State to make that final decision.
And typically, what is Greg Marshall's relationship with the local media? I know right now he's not talking, but up until this point in time, how has his relationship been with you and others in the media there?
Yeah, I started the beat 3 years ago, so all this stuff happened, kind of right before I got on. But I kind of coincided with the move to the American, and there's been ups and downs. WSU has they had that one season where they started off really, really poorly and had a losing record in January, and he's just not used to losing like that. So he can be a little rough around the edges and make life a little difficult, but nothing like too crazy. And for the most part, he's been, pretty charming. I mean, he has that ability to turn on the charm and be, very engaging and tell, great stories. And, he can be, extremely likable. But, as far as, what I've just been reporting is just, I'm just talking to the former players and just relaying what they've told me. So, it's been kind of a difficult spot, but this is it's kind of interesting to see this unfold in real time, and it's kind of put a little bit of a stress on the former players because like I said, a lot of the former players have come out and defended Marshall, but they weren't the ones that were present for these 2 instances, and it's kind of made those relationships a little rocky too. But from personal experience, Greg Marshall has been, for the most part, nothing but kind to me, and he's a great quote, one of the best quotes in America, I think, because he's just, he's so witty, and he can go on these pretty funny rants and stuff like that. So that's been my experience with him. But like I said, that just stretches back the last 3 years.
How's the fan base reaction, I'm sure you guys hear through your channels on Twitter and other various, sports talk radio, things like that. How's the fan base reaction been to this so far?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think it's definitely caused, a split in the fan base too. I think, there are Marshall, there are fans who read this stuff and they see the number of players that are saying that this happened, and they're kind of saying it isn't so, kind of like that. And but for the most part, from what I've seen, the reaction is like, let's let the investigation play out. They're going to wait for the final results. They're going to wait for to see what happens officially before they reach judgment. And I think that Marshall still has the majority of the fan support in Wichita State, and that's how most fans are approaching it. Where they're just going to wait until this investigation wraps up. But there is a small segment who are kind of maybe they've lost this whole thing has kind of lost them, and but for the most part, I would say that the majority of fans are still in Marshall's corner until the very end.
And then I would also want to ask this particular question as far as, say the investigation does not show any physical contact, but, he is, as you said, he's rough around the edges, things like that. what sort of thing can happen from here forward? Because, the climate has changed quite a bit, especially in 2020. What may have gone previously may not go now.
Yeah, I think it's. I think the main parts of this were just the two instances of the physical abuse. I'm not sure the verbal abuse. A lot of the former players can speak to that, and there's for the handful of players who said that he was verbally abusive, there's going to be 2 times that many who come out and say, Greg Marshall helped me reach new heights by pushing me like that. And it's a lot of it. So it'll be interesting to see. Like you said, there's just certain stuff that in 2020, you wonder, does that go now? And it's just one of those things where, it's kind of like the locker room talk, and, that's just how Division I sports are, where coaches are intense, and they're going to say, things like that. And, it just makes you wonder, like, where this will go. I don't have a read on that, like how Wichita State's going to handle that. But I can say that the more serious stuff does seem to be like the two physical abuse allegations, more so than the verbal stuff.
Well, Taylor, this has been very informative, and of course the investigation is ongoing. Please let our audience know where they can follow your coverage as this investigation continues and eventually concludes.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Taylor Eldridge, or you can check out my work on the Wichita Eagles website, kansas.com.
All right, Taylor, thanks so much. We do appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you. Have a good one.
And before we wrap things up, let's take a look at the weekly rankings in the AP poll. Cincinnati cracks the top 10, sitting at number 8. SMU is at number 17. The coaches have Cincinnati at number 10 and SMU at 18. The conference players of the week, the offensive player of the week, Marquez Stevenson of Houston, 223 all-purpose yards, 2 long touchdowns in the Houston 49-31 victory over Tulane in the Cougars season opener. He had 5 catches for 118 yards, including a 41-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter that put the game away. He also added a 97-yard kickoff return in the third quarter after the Green Wave had closed to within 3 points. It was his 9th career game with at least 100 receiving yards and has 13 receptions of at least 40 yards since the start of the 2018 season. That is good for 3rd nationally. The defensive player of the week, Terrell Adams of Navy, the linebacker from Birmingham, Alabama, made his first career start, stepping in for injured all-conference linebacker Diego Fagot. He delivered a team-high 9 tackles as the midshipman downed Temple 31-29. He was working on a defense that was without 5 regular starters. Adams came with the biggest defensive play of the game as he knocked aside what would have been the game-tying 2-point conversion with just over a minute remaining. And the special teams player of the week, Jake Verity of East Carolina, had 14 points, connecting on 3 field goals of 29, 42, and 37 yards, and 5 point-after touchdowns in East Carolina's victory over South Florida. In the process, he became the Pirates' career scoring leader with 309 points, passing the old mark of 300 set by Warren Harvey between 2012 and 2014. The NCAA's active career leader with 66 field goals. Verity has become the 5th AAC kicker to surpass 300 career points. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of the show. As always, we invite you to follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88, and please like and share all of our Nightline Network sports programming. This has been the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.